Starlets and Secrets, the dark side of Hollywood's Golden Girls. The spotlight blazed, a blinding halo that turned dreams into legends. Hollywood's golden age, spanning the 1930s to the 1950s, was a dazzling mirage of glamour, where starlets draped in satin and diamonds captivated the world. Picture the grand marquees of Grauman's Chinese theater, the roar of adoring crowds, and the clink of champagne glasses at exclusive premieres. It was an era of technicolor fantasies, where movies spun tales of romance and heroism, and the silver screen promised eternal youth. Yet beneath the glittering surface, a darker pulse throbbed, a world of secrets, scandals, and shattered dreams, where the price of stardom was paid in whispers and shadows. This is the untold story of Hollywood's Golden Girls. Step into the heart of Tinseltown, where the studio system ruled like an iron-fisted monarch. Titans like MGM, Warner Brothers, and Paramount didn't just make movies, they engineered icons. Starlets weren't born, they were sculpted, their lives micromanaged to fit the studio's vision of perfection. These women, radiant and untouchable on screen, were pawns in a high-stakes game. Contracts dictated their diets, their romances, even their thoughts. A single misstep, a scandalous affair, a rebellious quip, could end a career faster than a fading spotlight. The studios controlled it all, from the curl of a lip to the curve of a waist, crafting goddesses for a worshipful public while hiding the cracks beneath. Beauty was non-negotiable, and the standards were ruthless. Actresses faced relentless pressure to embody an impossible ideal. Porcelain skin, hourglass figures, and faces that cameras adored. Some were remade entirely, their bodies and identities reshaped to fit the mold. Rita Hayworth, the sultry siren, wasn't just born, she was carved. Her hairline was painfully raised through electrolysis to erase her Latina roots, transforming Margarita Cancino into an all-American bombshell. Others endured similar fates, their ethnic identities whitewashed to appease audiences. Names were changed, accents erased, and histories rewritten, all to feed the fantasy of a homogenized Hollywood dream. The obsession with perfection didn't stop at surgery. Starlets were laced into corsets so tight they could barely breathe. Some even sewn into costumes to ensure every seam hugged their frame like a lover. Diets were starvation level, pills handed out to keep energy high and appetites low. Public appearances demanded flawless poise, every smile rehearsed, every glance calculated. The studio's grip extended to personal lives too. Marriages arranged for headlines, pregnancies hidden to protect reputations. Behind closed doors, fixers worked overtime, bearing scandals before they could stain the pristine image of their stars. Yet for all the control, cracks appeared. Whispers of affairs, addictions, and breakdowns slipped through, hinting at the human cost of fame. These women, icons like Marilyn Monroe, Joan Crawford, and Lana Turner, weren't just actresses. They were survivors navigating a treacherous world. Their stories, laced with ambition and heartbreak, reveal the truth behind the glamour. Buckle up for a thrilling ride into Hollywood's golden age, where beauty was a battlefield and secrets were the ultimate currency. Chapter 1. Joan Crawford, the scandal that never was. In 1925, a young Lucille LeSueur appeared in a film that would haunt her for years, not for its content, but for what it revealed about her past. Barely out of her teens, she was a dancer with dreams bigger than the dusty stages of Chicago's chorus lines. She had no inkling that a fleeting, desperate choice would spark a scandal threatening to incinerate her budding career. That film, whispered about as Velvet Lips, was no glamorous debut. It was a rumored pornographic reel, a shadowy relic of a struggling girl's fight to survive. As Lucille transformed into Joan Crawford, Hollywood's radiant icon, the specter of that film loomed, forcing her studio, MGM, to wage a clandestine war involving blackmailers, mobsters, and mountains of cash to bury a secret that could have shattered her stardom. This is the thrilling tale of the scandal that never was. Born in San Antonio around 1904, Lucille LeSueur was no stranger to hardship. Her childhood was a gritty montage of poverty, a fractured family, and relentless ambition. By her teens, she was hoofing it in Broadway reviews, her fiery determination catching the eye of MGM's Harry Raff. In 1925, she signed with the studio, shedding her birth name, deemed too much like Sewer, for the sleek, marquee-ready Joan Crawford. The transformation was swift, a chorus girl reborn as a flapper queen in films like Sally, Irene, and Mary. Her wide-eyed intensity and sultry charm electrified audiences, propelling her toward stardom. By the late 1920s, she was MGM's Golden Girl, starring opposite Lon Chaney in The Unknown and dazzling in Our Dancing Daughters. But beneath the glamour, a dangerous secret simmered, one that could have reduced her rise to ashes. The whispers began early as Crawford's star ascended. Rumors swirled of a pre-Hollywood misstep, a stag film, allegedly titled Velvet Lips, made when she was a cash-strapped teenager. Such films, crude, explicit shorts for clandestine men's gatherings, were the underbelly of the era's entertainment. Biographers later claimed Crawford, then Lucille, appeared in several, including The Casting Couch and The Plumber, driven by financial desperation before her 1925 MGM contract. Whether true or not, the mere suggestion was dynamite in an industry obsessed with purity. A starlet's image was her currency, and Crawford's was meticulously crafted. Freckles airbrushed, her past polished into a rags-to-riches fairy tale. Exposure of Velvet Lips could have branded her a pariah, unraveling MGM's investment in their new leading lady. Crawford herself denied the film's existence, scoffing at the notion in her 1962 memoir, A Portrait of Joan. Yet her first husband, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., later revealed her terror over the rumors, confiding that she'd admitted to a compromising project from a financially desperate moment. The truth remains murky. No verified copy of Velvet Lips has ever surfaced. But in Hollywood's golden age, perception was everything, and MGM wasn't taking chances. The studio, under the iron grip of Louis B. Mayer, was a fortress of control, its publicity machine adept at sculpting narratives and burying skeletons. When blackmailers emerged, waving alleged prints of the film, MGM sprang into action, determined to protect their star at any cost. The studio's response was a high-stakes thriller unfolding behind closed doors. In the late 1920s and again in 1935, extortionists, some speculated to include Crawford's own brother, Hal LeSueur, demanded hefty sums to keep Velvet Lips from the press. Hal, a failed actor resentful of his sister's success, reportedly hovered on the fringes, a potential informant. MGM didn't blink. Sources claim the studio shelled out up to $100,000 per incident, a fortune in that era, to secure prints and negatives. Studio fixer Eddie Mannix, a man with a knack for making problems vanish, was tasked with the cleanup. His methods were ruthless, collecting copies, tracking down sources, and ensuring silence. But the stakes escalated when negotiations turned to the underworld. Enter Johnny Rosselli, a Chicago outfit mobster with Tinseltown ties. According to biographer Tim Adler, MGM enlisted Rosselli to handle the blackmailers when they demanded $100,000 for a negative in the 1930s. The studio offered $25,000, and Rosselli delivered a chilling ultimatum: hand over the film or face lethal consequences. The extortionists folded, the negative changed hands, and Rosselli pocketed the cash. This wasn't MGM's first dance with the mob. Hollywood and organized crime were uneasy bedfellows, with gangsters often bankrolling films or protecting stars. For Crawford, the mob's involvement was a dark necessity, ensuring Velvet Lips stayed buried. Mannix, relentless, reportedly tracked down the master negative, destroying it with MGM funds, rumored to total hundreds of thousands across the ordeal. The studio's efforts extended beyond payoffs. Crawford's image was meticulously retooled to erase any hint of scandal. Her early roles as vivacious flappers gave way to sophisticated heroines in films like Grand Hotel, distancing her from a tawdry past. MGM's publicity team churned out stories of her grit and grace, casting her as a self-made star rather than a desperate ingenue. Cosmetic tweaks, erasing freckles, refining her features, reinforced her untouchable aura. Even her personal life was choreographed. Rumored affairs were hushed, and marriages, like her 1929 union with Fairbanks, were packaged for fan magazines. The studio's control was absolute, but the specter of velvet lips lingered, a ghost only Crawford and her handlers fully understood. A thrilling twist came in 1943, when Crawford parted ways with MGM. Amid a mutual agreement to end her contract, she paid the studio $50,000, a curious sum for a supposedly amicable split. Biographers speculate this was her final act to ensure Velvet Lip's destruction, a personal payment to obliterate any remaining negatives Mannix might have missed. It was a staggering move, underscoring her determination to safeguard her legacy. By then, Crawford was an Oscar contender, soon to win for Mildred Pierce at Warner Brothers. The gamble paid off. Her star burned brighter, untarnished by the scandal that could have been. The saga of Velvet Lips is a pulse-pounding glimpse into Hollywood's underbelly, where power, money, and secrets collided. Did the film exist? Crawford's denials clashed with Fairbanks' confessions and the studio's frantic payouts, leaving a tantalizing mystery. MGM's war, waged with cash, mob muscle, and relentless image control, kept the truth from breaking. Crawford emerged unscathed, her ambition unbroken, her name synonymous with glamour, not disgrace. Yet the whispers persist, a reminder that even icons carry shadows. Chapter 2, Jean Harlow, A Marriage Made in Hell. On September 5, 1932, Paul Byrne, husband of Hollywood's hottest star Jean Harlow, was found dead in their Benedict Canyon home, his naked body sprawled in a pool of blood, a revolver by his side. The shot that killed him echoed beyond the mansion's walls, igniting a firestorm of whispers, lies, and a possible murder Hollywood fought to erase. Jean Harlow, the platinum blonde bombshell, was MGM's reigning goddess, her allure electrifying the silver screen. But this scandal, a tangled web of betrayal, a shadowy ex-lover, and a studio desperate to save its star, threatened to shatter her crown. Was Byrne's death a suicide, as MGM insisted, or a cold-blooded killing by a woman from his past? The truth, cloaked in a cryptic note and a frantic cover-up, remains one of Tinseltown's darkest enigmas. This is the thrilling tale of a marriage made in hell. Jean Harlow was no mere actress. She was a phenomenon. At 21, she'd conquered Hollywood as the blonde bombshell, her sultry giggle and brazen curves making her a box office juggernaut. Films like Hell's Angels and Public Enemy showcased her as both vixen and vulnerable, a star who could seduce and break hearts in a single frame. By 1932, she was MGM's prize, starring in hits like Red Dust with Clark Gable. But fame came at a brutal cost. The studio system owned her, dictating her diet, her wardrobe, even her love life. Harlow's image as a sex symbol demanded perfection. Her hair bleached to an unearthly platinum, her body corseted into impossibly tight gowns. Off-screen, she was a warm, witty Kansas City girl, but the public saw only the siren, a fantasy MGM guarded fiercely. Enter Paul Byrne, a soft-spoken MGM executive, 22 years her senior, who swept her into a whirlwind marriage. To the world, it was a fairy tale. Behind closed doors, it was a ticking bomb. Byrne, a respected producer known for nurturing talent, married Harlow in July 1932, just months before his death. Their union stunned Hollywood. Harlow, the vivacious starlet, paired with a bookish intellectual, seemed an odd match. Yet Byrne adored her, showering her with devotion. Harlow, craving stability, saw him as a protector from the industry's claws. But Byrne carried a secret. Dorothy Millette, his common-law wife from a decade earlier, a mentally unstable actress he'd never fully left behind. Millette, living quietly in New York, re-entered his life like a ghost, her presence a dagger to Harlow's marriage. On that fateful September night, Byrne's world collapsed, and the fallout would test MGM's power to rewrite reality. The scene at 9820 Easton Drive was chaos. Byrne's butler found him at 11 a.m., naked, a bullet through his head, the air thick with perfume and gunpowder. A .38 revolver lay nearby, and a note sat on the dresser, its words cryptic. Dearest dear, unfortunately, this is the only way to make good the frightful wrong I have done you and to wipe out my frightful humiliation. You understand that last night was only a comedy. Police were baffled. Suicide seemed plausible. Byrne had health issues and rumored impotence. But inconsistencies piled up. Why was he naked? Why the perfume? Why was Harlow staying at her mother's that night, whisked away by MGM before questioning? And who was the woman neighbors saw fleeing the house? MGM descended like a storm. Studio fixers, led by Louis B. Mayer and Eddie Mannix, arrived before detectives, orchestrating the narrative. Byrne's death was declared a suicide within hours. The note framed as his apology for personal failings. Harlow, devastated and sequestered, was kept silent, her grief exploited to sell the story. But cracks appeared. The coroner noted the bullet's angle suggested a shooter standing above Byrne, not a self-inflicted wound. Blood patterns hinted at a struggle. Then came the bombshell. Dorothy Millette, Byrne's ex, had been in Los Angeles that night. Witnesses placed her at the house, and her history of mental instability fueled suspicions. Had she confronted Byrne, enraged by his marriage to Harlow, and pulled the trigger? Millette's story deepened the mystery. A former actress who'd lived with Byrne in New York, she'd been supported by him financially, even after he left her in 1920. Described as erratic, she'd recently contacted Byrne, possibly learning of his new life. On September 4th, she checked into a Hollywood hotel, her movements untracked until Byrne's death. 9 days later, on September 14th, Millette's body was found in the Sacramento River, an apparent suicide by drowning. Her purse held $5,000, suspected to be hush money from MGM. Had she killed Byrne in a jealous rage, then fled, only to be silenced by her own hand or the studio's reach? The timing was too convenient, and MGM's grip tightened. The cover-up was a masterclass in studio power. Mayer, obsessed with Harlow's image, ensured no scandal touched her. Fixers scrubbed the scene, removing Millette's traces, rumored fingerprints, a second glass, even her hotel records. Reporters were bribed or threatened, and Harlow's mother, a domineering figure, parroted MGM's line. Byrne was troubled, and Jean was blameless. The note, never fully released, was teased as proof of Byrne's shame, though its vagueness, last night was only a comedy, hinted at a confrontation, perhaps with Millette. MGM leaned into Harlow's victimhood, rushing her into red dust to distract the public. By November, she was back on screens, her star untarnished, the scandal fading like a bad dream. But the truth gnawed. Insiders whispered of Millette's visit to Byrne, a fight over his betrayal, and a gunshot that wasn't his own. Some theorized MGM paid her to disappear, only for her guilt or studio enforcers to end her life. Others believe Byrne's note referred to a staged humiliation, possibly Millette exposing his past to Harlow. The police, under Hollywood's sway, closed the case swiftly, ignoring leads. Harlow herself never spoke publicly, though friends said she was haunted, blaming herself for Byrne's fate. Her career soared, dinner at 8, bombshell, but her personal life spiraled with 2 more marriages and a death at 26 from kidney failure. Millette's shadow lingered, a ghost MGM couldn't fully banish. Chapter 3, Ava Gardner, Forbidden Love and Studio Control. Ava Gardner's love for Frank Sinatra led to a secret that could have destroyed her career. But MGM's grip was even tighter. In the sultry haze of 1950s Hollywood, where spotlights burned hotter than the sun, Ava was a goddess of the silver screen, her smoldering beauty and defiant spirit captivating millions. Yet her torrid romance with Sinatra, a crooner battling his own demons, ignited a firestorm that threatened to engulf her stardom. Bound by MGM's ironclad contract, Ava faced a heart-wrenching choice, an abortion to protect her image, while the studio's invisible chains tightened around her life. From a small-town dreamer to a global icon, her journey was a high-stakes thriller of passion, rebellion, and secrets buried beneath Tinseltown's glamour. This is the electrifying saga of Ava Gardner's forbidden love and the studio that sought to cage her. Born in 1922 in Grabtown, North Carolina, Ava was a barefoot farm girl with no hint of the legend she'd become. Her rise began with a twist of fate, a fun fact that sparkles like a movie plot. At 18, working in a drugstore, her striking features caught a photographer's eye. A snapshot sent to MGM landed her a screen test, and by 1941, she was in Hollywood, a wide-eyed beauty signed to the studio's roster. But MGM didn't see a star. They saw raw material. Her southern drawl was deemed unrefined, her manners too rustic. They molded her ruthlessly. Speech coaches erased her accent, stylists sculpted her curves into gowns, and makeup artists accentuated her emerald eyes and full lips. By 1946, the killers made her a sensation, her sultry femme fatale role cementing her as a sex symbol. Films like Mogambo and The Barefoot Contessa followed, her charisma rivaling Marilyn Monroe's. Ava wasn't just a star, she was a force, her raw sensuality and sharp wit defying the era's cookie-cutter heroines. Yet MGM's control was suffocating. The studio system of the Golden Age was a gilded prison, dictating every facet of a starlet's life. Ava's contract mandated her appearance, her roles, even her romances. Publicity teams staged dates to boost her image, while fixers squashed rumors of her fiery temper or late-night escapades. Her first two marriages, to Mickey Rooney in 1942 and bandleader Artie Shaw in 1945, crumbled under studio pressure and her own restlessness. Ava chafed against the leash, her defiance growing as her fame soared. She smoked, drank, and spoke her mind. A rebel in a world demanding docile perfection. When she met Frank Sinatra in 1949, that rebellion ignited into a love so consuming, it shook Hollywood to its core. Sinatra was a supernova, charismatic, volatile, and married to Nancy Barbado, with 3 children and a career teetering after vocal cord issues. Ava, fresh off her divorce from Shaw, was drawn to his raw intensity. Their chemistry was explosive, a cocktail of lust and vulnerability that spilled into clandestine hotel rooms and late-night jazz clubs. By 1950, their affair was an open secret, splashed across tabloids. The public devoured the scandal, America's sweetheart crooner and the sultry siren, defying morality clauses and Catholic sensibilities. But MGM saw disaster. Ava's image as a glamorous leading lady couldn't withstand the stain of homewrecker. Sinatra's wife refused a divorce, and the studio's moral guardians demanded Ava end it. She refused, her heart tethered to Frank, even as the consequences loomed. The affair's darkest secret unfolded in 1952, a dagger to Ava's soul. Pregnant with Sinatra's child, she faced an impossible bind. MGM's contract was explicit. Motherhood, especially out of wedlock, could terminate her career. The studio had buried pregnancies before, starlets whisked to vacations, while fixers arranged adoptions or worse. Ava, still filming Ride, Vaquero, knew a baby would halt production, costing millions and branding her a liability. Sinatra, mired in his own comeback, was on tour, their relationship strained by distance and his jealousy. Alone, Ava made a gut-wrenching choice, an abortion, performed in secret in London to evade U.S. press. She later confessed to friends it was to save my career and Frank's, but the pain haunted her. MGM orchestrated the cover-up, ensuring no whisper escaped. When Ava suffered a second abortion years later, also hidden, her defiance of the studio's control grew, but so did her scars. The studio's grip extended beyond her body to her entire existence. MGM monitored her phone calls, vetted her friends, and planted stories to paint her as a carefree starlet, not a woman in love with a married man. When Sinatra finally divorced Nancy in 1951 and married Ava days later, the victory was bittersweet. The press savaged them, Ava labeled a temptress, Frank a traitor. MGM leaned harder, casting her in grueling roles to punish her defiance, while fixers bribed reporters to soften the narrative. The marriage itself was a tempest. Ava's fiery independence clashed with Sinatra's possessiveness. Fights erupted over her flirtations and his affairs, their love a roller coaster of reconciliations and rage. By 1957, they divorced, though their bond lingered, a bittersweet thread through their lives. Ava's rebellion against MGM took a toll. Her later years were marked by alcoholism, a shadow cast by Hollywood's pressures and personal losses. The studio's relentless control, Diets that left her faint, schedules that burned her out, pushed her to whiskey and solitude. After leaving MGM in 1958, she fled to Spain, then London, craving freedom. Films like The Night of the Iguana showed her talent undimmed, but her health faltered. By 1990, at 67, she died of pneumonia, her spirit still untamed but her body worn by battles, against the bottle, the industry, and her own heart. Friends said she never regretted Sinatra, only the choices forced upon her. Chapter 4, Judy Garland, The Dark Side of Oz. From Dorothy in Oz to a broken woman battling demons, Judy Garland's life was a tragedy scripted by Hollywood itself. At 17, she twirled down the yellow brick road in The Wizard of Oz, her voice a beacon of hope, her eyes sparkling with dreams. But behind the Technicolor magic, a darker tale unfolded. One of a child star crushed under MGM's iron fist, fed pills to keep her thin and awake, her spirit eroded by studio control and personal heartbreak. From vaudeville stages to global icon, Judy's journey was a high-octane thriller of talent and torment, where the spotlight burned as fiercely as it shone. Her battles with addiction, mental health, and a string of failed marriages culminated in a devastating end at 47, leaving a legacy as haunting as her voice. This is the electrifying story of Judy Garland and the Dark Side of Oz. Born Frances Ethel Gum in 1922 in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, Judy was a prodigy thrust into the spotlight at 2.5, belting tunes with the Gum sisters on vaudeville stages. Her voice, rich, soulful, impossibly powerful, stole hearts, but it was her signing with MGM at 13 that launched her into orbit. Renamed Judy Garland, she was molded into America's sweetheart, her cherubic face and big brown eyes perfect for the studio's wholesome vision. Yet MGM saw flaws. She was too chubby, too plain for leading roles. The fix was brutal. From 1935, executives forced her onto a regimen of diet pills, amphetamines to curb hunger, barbiturates to sleep, starting a lifelong addiction. At 13, she was a lab rat for Hollywood's warped standards, her body and mind rewired to meet relentless demands. The Wizard of Oz in 1939 was her supernova moment. As Dorothy Gale, Judy became immortal, her rendition of Over the Rainbow, a global anthem of longing. But filming was hell. A fun fact reveals the cruelty. MGM executives, dismissing her as a problem child, often locked her in her dressing room between takes to control her schedule and prevent snacking. She was corseted to look younger, fed only broth and coffee, and dosed with pep pills to endure 18-hour days. Director Victor Fleming berated her. Crew whispered she was unstable. At 16, she was already fraying, her innocence a casualty of the studio's machine. The film's success cemented her fame, but deepened her cage. MGM owned her, dictating every role, every breath. The pills were only the beginning. Amphetamines kept her rail thin at 98 pounds, but they sparked paranoia and insomnia. Barbiturates dulled the edge, but overdoses loomed. By her teens, Judy's mental health teetered, self-esteem crushed by executives calling her the ugly duckling next to stars like Lana Turner. She craved love, but MGM stifled her romances, fearing they'd tarnish her image. Her first marriage at 19 to composer David Rose in 1941 was a rebellion, but it collapsed under studio pressure and her spiraling dependency. By Meet Me in St. Louis in 1944, she was a radiant star, yet privately unraveling, her laughter masking panic attacks and pill binges. Judy's personal life was a storm of passion and pain. Her second marriage to director Vincente Minnelli in 1945 produced daughter Lisa, but his controlling nature and rumored affairs crushed her. She threw herself into work. Easter Parade, A Star is Born. But MGM's grip tightened. When she collapsed from exhaustion in 1947, the studio sent her to sanitariums, not for rest, but electroshock therapy, a barbaric cure for her depression. Her 1950 firing from MGM after missing shoots for Annie Get Your Gun was a public humiliation, followed by a suicide attempt. Slashed wrists, hushed up by fixers. She was 28, a has-been in Hollywood's eyes, her addiction a noose. Yet Judy was a fighter. She clawed back with concerts, her voice raw and electric, selling out Carnegie Hall in 1961. But her third marriage to Sid Luft brought new lows: abuse, financial ruin, and custody battles over their children, Lorna and Joey. Luft plied her with pills to keep her performing, her body a wreck from decades of abuse. Her fourth husband, Mark Herron, was a brief flare, ending in betrayal. By her fifth marriage to Mickey Deans in 1969, Judy was a shadow, frail, broke, her mental health shattered by bipolar swings and paranoia. She performed in dives, her voice still magic, but her heart broken by a lifetime of being used. The studio's role in her descent was criminal. From 13, MGM's pill regimen hooked her, a deliberate choice to maximize output. Louis B. Mayer called her his little hunchback to her face, shredding her confidence. Production logs show she was given up to 20 pills daily during Oz, Benzedrine for energy, Seconal to crash. When she begged for rest, she got more scripts, more scrutiny. Her weight was monitored obsessively. A single pound gained meant starvation diets. Co-stars like Ray Bolger later admitted guilt, seeing her doped up but powerless against the studio. MGM's fixers buried overdoses, faked flu to explain absences, and painted her as unreliable to justify their control. Her mental health, depression, anxiety, was weaponized, proof she needed their guidance. Judy's tragedies piled up like a noir climax. A 1950 overdose was hushed. A 1964 collapse in London barely made news. Her children adored her, but couldn't save her. Liza, a star herself, watched helplessly as Judy slipped. Friends described her final years as a desperate performance, singing for survival while promoters stole her earnings. On June 22, 1969, Deans found her dead in their London flat, a barbiturate overdose at 47. The coroner ruled it accidental, her system so tolerant from years of abuse that a fatal dose was barely above her norm. Fans mourned, but Hollywood shrugged. She'd been discarded long ago. Chapter 5. Marilyn Monroe, The Myth and the Mystery. Marilyn Monroe was more than a blonde bombshell. She was a mystery wrapped in scandal, her life and death as enigmatic as her on-screen persona. From the shadows of a fractured childhood, as Norma Jean Baker to the blinding spotlight of global stardom, she became Hollywood's ultimate icon, her breathy voice and radiant beauty captivating the world. Yet beneath the platinum curls and sultry smile lay a woman exploited by studios, entangled with powerful men, and haunted by demons that culminated in her shocking death at 36 in 1962. Was it suicide, an accident, or something darker? A conspiracy tied to the Kennedys or the mob? Her rise from obscurity to legend is a pulse-pounding saga of ambition, heartbreak, and secrets that refuse to stay buried. This is the electrifying story of Marilyn Monroe, the myth and the mystery. Born Norma Jean Mortensen in 1926 in Los Angeles, Marilyn's early life was a noir thriller of its own. Shuttled between foster homes and an orphanage, her childhood was marked by poverty, abuse, and a mother institutionalized for schizophrenia. At 16, she escaped a grim future through marriage to James Dougherty, but her dreams were bigger than a factory worker's life. Discovered by a photographer while working at a munitions plant during World War II, her doe-eyed beauty landed her a modeling gig, then a contract with 20th Century Fox in 1946. Norma Jean became Marilyn Monroe, a name as manufactured as her image. The studio saw a blank canvas. Her widow's peak, a natural quirk, was erased through painful electrolysis. A fun fact revealing the lengths she went to fit Hollywood's rigid beauty standards. Her hair was bleached platinum, her figure honed to perfection, her past buried to craft a fantasy. Marilyn's rise was meteoric but brutal. Early bit parts gave way to breakthroughs in The Asphalt Jungle and All About Eve in 1950, her charisma undeniable. By 1953, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and How to Marry a Millionaire made her a superstar, her dumb blonde persona, sexy yet innocent, catapulting her to box office gold. But the studios were vampires. Fox paid her a pittance compared to co-stars, locking her into demeaning roles while executives like Daryl Zanuck dismissed her ambitions. She fought back, studying at the actor's studio, craving respect for films like Bus Stop and Some Like It Hot. Off-screen, she was a voracious reader, penning poetry, but the world saw only the bombshell, a caricature she both embraced and loathed. Her personal life was a high-stakes drama of love and betrayal. Married 3 times, divorcing Doherty in 1946, then baseball legend Joe DiMaggio in 1954 after 9 months of his jealousy, and playwright Arthur Miller in 1961 after a strained union. Marilyn craved stability but found chaos. Her affairs with powerful men fueled whispers. Director Elia Kazan, actor Yves Montand, and, most explosively, President John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert. Rumors of her 1962 Happy Birthday serenade to JFK at Madison Square Garden painted her as a political liability, her allure a dangerous weapon. These relationships, real or exaggerated, placed her in a web of influence. Hollywood moguls, political titans, even mob figures like Sam Giancana, who some claim watched her closely. Marilyn's struggles were as public as her triumphs. Studio exploitation fed her insecurities. She was given amphetamines to work, barbiturates to sleep, her addiction spiraling by the 1950s. Miscarriages and endometriosis crushed her dream of motherhood, while anxiety and depression led to breakdowns on sets like The Misfits. She was late, erratic, but her magic on screen was undeniable. Directors called her a genius despite the chaos. By 1962, fired from Something's Got to Give for absences, she was fighting to reclaim her career, her body frail from pills and heartbreak. Yet her final months were a blaze of defiance. Plans for new films, a press conference proving her vitality. Then came August 5th, 1962, when the world stopped. Marilyn was found dead in her Brentwood home, naked on her bed, phone in hand, barbiturates in her system. The coroner ruled probable suicide, citing her history of overdoses. She was 36, but the scene was a puzzle. Pills scattered, no glass of water to swallow them. Her housekeeper and psychiatrist giving vague accounts. Police noted oddities. Her body was too posed. Lividity suggested she'd been moved, and phone records showed calls to Bobby Kennedy's line that night. Within hours, studio fixers and LAPD insiders swarmed, allegedly sanitizing the scene. Her diary, rumored to detail Kennedy's secrets, vanished. The official story unraveled as witnesses emerged. Neighbors saw a man, some say Bobby, leaving her home. Others claimed an ambulance arrived before police, hinting at a cover-up. Conspiracy theories exploded, each more thrilling than the last. Did Marilyn know too much about JFK's affairs or mob ties, making her a target? Some point to the Kennedys, fearing her volatility after rumored promises of marriage from Bobby. Others finger the mob, using her death to pressure RFK's anti-crime crusade. The CIA, even the FBI, entered the fray in wilder tales, tying her to anti-Castro plots. More grounded theories suggest an accidental overdose, her doctor's sloppy prescriptions mixing lethal doses, or a studio-orchestrated silencing to protect investments. Her psychiatrist, Ralph Greenson, admitted to managing her, while housekeeper Eunice Murray's shifting stories fueled suspicion. No hard evidence pins a murder, yet the gaps, missing autopsy details, destroyed files, keep the mystery alive. Friends described her final days as hopeful, not suicidal. She was planning a comeback, not an exit. Her vulnerability, laid bare in The Misfits, was no act. It was Norma Jean pleading to be seen. Chapter 6, Lana Turner, Glamour and Gore. Lana Turner's life was a whirlwind of glamour and scandal, culminating in a murder that shocked the world and shattered her family. Known as Hollywood's sweater girl, she was a vision of golden allure, her radiant smile and curvaceous figure lighting up screens in the 1940s and 50s. But behind the sequins and spotlights, Lana's world was a high-octane thriller of torrid affairs, 7 tumultuous marriages, and a deadly climax in 1958, when her teenage daughter, Cheryl Crane, stabbed Lana's gangster lover, Johnny Stompanato, in a Beverly Hills mansion. The ensuing trial gripped the nation, exposing a web of passion, violence, and studio cover-ups that threatened to topple Lana's empire. From a drugstore discovery to a legend stained by blood, This is the electrifying saga of Lana Turner, where glamour met gore. Born Julia Jean Turner in 1921 in Wallace, Idaho, Lana's early years were steeped in hardship. After her father's murder in a robbery, she moved to Los Angeles with her mother, scraping by until fate intervened. At 16, sipping a soda at a Hollywood drugstore, not Schwab's as myth claims, but the Top Hat Cafe, she was spotted by a talent scout. By 1937, she was under contract with MGM. Her name changed to Lana, her auburn hair dyed blonde. Her breakout in They Won't Forget earned her the Sweater Girl moniker, her figure-hugging knits sparking a national craze. Films like Ziegfeld Girl and The Postman Always Rings Twice cemented her as a star, her sultry charm and icy beauty making her a box office queen. But Lana's off-screen life was a powder keg, her heart a battleground where love and chaos collided. Lana's romantic history was a roller coaster of passion and heartbreak. She married 7 times to 6 men, each union a headline-grabbing drama. Her first husband, bandleader Artie Shaw, wed her in 1940 after a whirlwind courtship, only to divorce months later amid his infidelity. Restaurateur Steve Crane followed, fathering Cheryl in 1943, but their on-again, off-again marriage ended in acrimony. Tycoon Bob Topping and actor Lex Barker came next, each leaving scars. Barker, Cheryl later alleged, abused her. Lana's lovers were legion: Frank Sinatra, Howard Hughes, Tyrone Power. Her affairs, often with married men, fueled gossip columns, but MGM's fixers kept the worst at bay, polishing her image as a glamorous siren. Enter Johnny Stompanato, a dark prince in Lana's glittering court. A former Marine with a chiseled jaw and dangerous charm, he was tied to mob boss Mickey Cohen, his life steeped in extortion and underworld deals. Lana met him in 1957, fresh off her Oscar-nominated turn in Peyton Place. At 36, she was at her peak, but lonely. Her latest marriage to Barker dissolved. Stompanato, 32, swept her into a torrid romance, his possessiveness thrilling yet terrifying. He showered her with gifts, jewelry, furs, but his temper flared violently. Letters later revealed he beat her, once holding a gun to her head on a film set in England, forcing Lana to flee. Yet she couldn't break free, her addiction to his intensity mirroring her own turbulent heart. The storm broke on April 4th, 1958, Good Friday, in Lana's pink-walled Beverly Hills mansion. Cheryl Crane, then 14, heard screams from her mother's bedroom. Stompanato, enraged after Lana refused to lie for him at an Oscars party, was attacking her, a razor in hand, threatening to cut her face. Cheryl, haunted by years of witnessing her mother's abuse, grabbed a kitchen knife. As Stompanato stormed out, she stabbed him once in the stomach. He collapsed, blood pooling on the carpet, dead at 32. Lana, hysterical, called her mother and lawyer before police, setting the stage for a scandal that would eclipse her stardom. Cheryl, trembling, was arrested, and the world held its breath for the trial that would lay bare Lana's secrets. The case was a media circus, a noir thriller unfolding in real time. Cheryl, charged with murder, claimed she acted to save her mother, her testimony a gut punch. "I thought he was going to kill her." Lana took the stand, her performance Oscar-worthy, tears streaming, voice breaking as she described Stompanato's abuse. "I begged him to stop," she sobbed, recounting his threats. The courtroom gasped at revelations of his mob ties. Cohen's goons reportedly pressured witnesses to stay silent. MGM, desperate to salvage Lana's career, leaned on fixers to spin the narrative. Lana was a victim, Cheryl a hero. The coroner's inquest, broadcast live, was a spectacle. Lana's glamour clashing with the grisly truth. On April 11th, the jury ruled Cheryl's act justifiable homicide, freeing her in minutes. She was remanded to juvenile custody, but the verdict saved Lana's image, barely. The fallout was seismic. Tabloids screamed murder in paradise, painting Lana as both damsel and femme fatale. Her affair with Stompanato, long shielded by studio muscle, exploded into view. His love letters, graphic, obsessive, leaked to the press. Questions lingered. Did Lana know Cheryl had the knife? Was Stampanato's mob connection a factor? Some theorizing Cohen ordered a hit gone wrong? Cheryl's 1988 memoir, Detour, insisted she acted alone, but whispers of a stage defense persisted. Lana's career teetered. Peyton Place had shown her depth, but scandal threatened to reduce her to a punchline. Defiant, she starred in Imitation of Life in 1959, a blockbuster that proved her resilience, grossing millions. Yet the toll was personal. Cheryl, scarred, battled addiction. Lana's bond with her daughter frayed under guilt and fame's weight. Lana's later years were a quieter storm. Marriages to Fred May and Robert Eaton fizzled. A seventh to Ronald Peller ended in theft allegations. She kept acting, Madame X, TV roles, but the Sweater Girl's glow faded. By her 1995 death from cancer at 74, she was a legend, her scandals part of her mystique. The Stampanato killing remains Hollywood's bloodiest footnote, a clash of glamour and gore. Lana's life, drugstore dreamer to star, lover of dangerous men, was a thriller of excess. Cheryl's knife cut deeper than flesh, exposing a world where love was lethal, and Lana Turner's heart, forever on display, paid the ultimate price. Chapter 7, The Shadows of Stardom, Lesser-Known Tragedies. While some starlets became legends, others faded into obscurity, or worse. These are the stories of Hollywood's forgotten tragedies, where dreams collided with despair in the shadow of Tinseltown's glittering facade. The golden age of Hollywood promised fame, but for many it delivered heartbreak, exploitation, and untimely ends. Peg Entwistle, a Broadway hopeful who leapt from the Hollywood sign, and Natalie Wood, a child star haunted by abuse and a mysterious drowning, embody this dark underbelly. Their tales, alongside other lost starlets, reveal a chilling truth. The pursuit of stardom often exacted a lethal toll. This is a pulse-pounding plunge into the shadows of stardom, where ambition met agony, and the cost of fame was paid in blood and tears. Peg Entwistle's story is a dagger to the heart, a symbol of Hollywood's cruelty. Born Millicent Lillian Entwistle in 1908 in Wales, she was drawn to the stage like a moth to flame. After losing her mother young and her father to a hit-and-run in New York, Peg found solace in acting. By 17, she was shining on Broadway, her performance in The Wild Duck inspiring a young Bette Davis to follow her path. In 1932, chasing silver screen glory, she moved to Los Angeles, living with her uncle near the Hollywoodland sign, a beacon of hope that would become her gallows. Peg landed a role in RKO's 13 Women, but her part was slashed, her contract dropped. The Great Depression tightened its grip, and rejection stung deeper. On September 16, 1932, at 24, she told her uncle she was meeting friends. Instead, she hiked to the sign, climbed a ladder to the H, and jumped to her death. A hiker found her body, her purse holding a note that read, "I am afraid I am a coward. I am sorry for everything. If I had done this a long time ago, it would have saved a lot of pain." Peg's suicide, dubbed the Hollywood Sign Girl, haunts Tinseltown, with rumors of her ghost lingering, gardenia scent trailing the hills. A cruel twist. Days later, a letter arrived, offering her a role in a play about a woman who dies by suicide. Natalie Wood's tale is no less harrowing, a thriller laced with talent and terror. Born Natalia Zakharenko in 1938 to Russian immigrants, she was pushed into acting at 4 by a stage mother obsessed with fame. By 8, she was a star in Miracle on 34th Street, her dark eyes and natural grace captivating audiences. But her childhood was stolen. Her mother, Maria, fed her fears, once tossing her into a river to elicit tears for a scene, cementing Natalie's lifelong dread of water. Studio bosses exploited her, working her to exhaustion. Rumors persist of abuse by powerful men, including a harrowing assault at 16. Natalie's career soared, rebel without a cause, West Side Story, but her personal life was a tempest. Married 3 times, twice to Robert Wagner, she battled insecurity and pills. On November 29, 1981, at 43, she vanished from the yacht Splendor off Catalina Island, her body found hours later, floating in a flannel nightgown. Ruled an accidental drowning, the case reeks of mystery. Bruises on her body, Wagner's evasive account, and her terror of water-raising questions. Did she fall, drunk on wine and quaaludes? Was she pushed? Theories point to Wagner's jealousy or mob ties, but no charges stuck. Reopened in 2011, her case remains unsolved, a shadow over her luminous legacy. Other starlets met equally grim fates, their names fading like old film reels. Thelma Todd, the ice cream blonde, was a 1930s comedian whose charm lit up monkey business. In 1935, at 29, she was found dead in her car, carbon monoxide poisoning the official cause. Blood on her face and mob connections to her cafe hinted at murder, perhaps by ex-lover Roland West or gangsters she crossed. No one was charged, her death a whisper in Hollywood's roar. Lupe Velas, the Mexican Spitfire, blazed in silent films and talkies like The Gaucho. Her tempestuous affair with Gary Cooper and a broken engagement led to her 1944 suicide at 36, overdosing on Seconal, pregnant, and alone. Tabloids spun a lurid tale of her death in a toilet, a cruel lie to tarnish her fire. Barbara Payton, a 1950s starlet in Kiss Tomorrow. Goodbye saw her beauty fade under alcoholism and abuse. By 1967, at 39, she died of heart failure, destitute, her glamour a distant memory. These tragedies weren't accidents. They were Hollywood's collateral damage. The studio system was a machine, chewing up talent and spitting out husks. Starlets faced impossible standards, perfect bodies, pliant personas, lives scripted by executives. Pills were currency, amphetamines to work, barbiturates to sleep, addiction a given. Women like Peg were cut without mercy when they didn't fit. Natalie endured exploitation masked as opportunity. Publicists buried scandals, fixers silenced truths, and the press fed on misery, turning pain into profit. Mental health was ignored. Depression, anxiety, trauma dismissed as weakness. For every Marilyn, there were dozens like Thelma or Lupe, their stories erased, their graves unmarked by fame.